Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that focuses on business and marketing in the front and parties hard in the back. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in legal marketing and law firm development. I'm Jake Sanders. He's Paul Julius, party rocker number one. Paul, here's my question. Who would win in a fight in between Einstein and Tesla?
I'm going Tesla.
Yeah?
Tesla would somehow do some kind of Doctor Strange energy control thing. But then again, Einstein could just like wink himself out of existence into a different existence.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm second guessing myself. What do you think?
Well, and I think it's when there, you bring up a good point there. And I think it's also when you catch him, like young Einstein, Patton Clark Einstein, before he, whatever, dug up that meteor where he found his space math powers. I think that might be a scrappier person. And Tesla was a known sort of pacifist. Mm-hmm. You know, he was sort of just like, look, I can cause an earthquake with sound, but I'm not gonna. You know, look, I can shoot lightning out of this thing, but maybe I won't. You know, I love pigeons. It's true. Look it up. Look it up. Anyway, we have to gravitate towards the intro. Tell people what they're falling into today.
Today on the show, we're talking about referrals, how to get them, how to give them, and how not to be a weirdo about it in general. First, with an article from our homie's attorney at work, and then we talk to Stacey Brown Randall, author of the award-winning book Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, and host of the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. And then we get smart answers to dumb questions with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The article today on the Hot Take Buffet is from Attorney at Work. Those chefs, those chef de cuisines, one of them being Mike Margol, the VP of James Publishing, who wrote a piece here entitled 5 Simple Methods for Increasing Referrals for Your Law Firm. Mike, friend of CW, James Publishing, friend of the pod. This was a good piece. I thought it's interesting because I'm going back and forth on advertising and marketing and then referrals. And I keep looking at these things saying, well, no, this is good, but you can't rely on this alone for marketing. But I love this piece because it's very simple. 5 easy steps. Recognize your sources, speak up, you know, ask for them naturally along the way, of your case process. Disbursement at the end. 3, doesn't have to mean that you just say goodbye to people. 4, you can brand your process, make it part of your email signatures, all this. And 5, he said, just make a 1 sheet, with a picture of you smiling, saying, we love you, give us referrals. It's all good advice. I dug this piece. I'm thankful for Stacey's interview later because it takes this and makes it feel, just like you said in your intro, how can you do this and not feel weird about it? Like, okay, it's all good, and we can ask for business, but you just feel a little like, and I'm a marketer, and I'm an advertiser. I'm sold on all of this stuff, and I still feel weird. You're like, can we trust you to give us good business? It just feels weird. So Stacey has something that makes this accessible. So I think read this to start, but listen to the interview later. What's your hot take here?
Yeah, it is weird. That's my whole thing, and that's why I said that. And there's a weirdness to asking for it, and there's a weirdness when you're in a position where someone is, giving you a referral. It just seems it seems odd. It seems like there's this reputation thing going on. Like I'm kind of responsible if I give someone a referral and that person doesn't come through. Like, do I really trust them?
And then do you follow up? Do you have to live and die seeing like, hey man, what happened? Or hey,
well, I mean, I think it's kind of to tell you the truth, I mean, until we talked to Stacey, my whole thing about it was, unless I had actual like hands-on experience with that person's service or business, I wasn't going to do it. I really wouldn't. I would just be like, yeah, I looked up, I had good luck on, Upwork, or something like that. Like, oh, I just put out an ad, but maybe I'll give you advice on kind of what I did looking for it, but I'm pretty, I play it close to the chest when it comes to referrals. And the one thing that really, really hit me, it's a very stark contrast between what this article says, and what Stacy says. And I'm not knocking this article. I'm not knocking Stacy, but this one, number 5 on here, the one sheet. We do this. We get a lot of them for guests who are going to be on the show, and they're useful. I like that in that application. It's great. Or other podcast, like we have a one sheet, like
content creation stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, it says, consider creating a simple one-page flyer with your photo, contact info, bio, and any other pertinent information. Might be helpful to a potential referral source. Give the flyer to lawyers in your referral network, professional partners, blah, blah, blah. How would you feel if someone handed you something like that?
No, well, see, and like no one would, and it's weird because Paul, you're hitting on such a fundamental thing. Marketing feels weird, then this referral thing feels weird, and then you create this hybrid of all of this.
And it's odd. Like, so a business card is okay.
Right.
But a one sheet that could, like I just said, I mean, they're useful, really useful to us, but then now you've crossed this line into, pushy, awkward. Or
and think about this social media posting too. Like, do you do the self-serving post? Because it doesn't get as much likes as your guitar pictures or your guitar, your cat guitar pictures or, or whatever it is.
Cat can play.
That cat can play. But, who are we? The context sort of sets the table. And what you just said, I play it close to the chest with my referrals. That's what Stacy's talking about. She's saying this is like when people give referrals, they don't hand off marketing material. They hand off this solution to a problem that someone they know is having. And to your point, you said, here's a pathway to the solution. And if I know someone specific, I say, here's this service. But I think everyone does that. And the way to get into the referral process naturally, Stacy unpacks in a useful way because it's sort of the stuff that Mike is talking here on Attorney at Work, but it's made more natural. And the thing I love best about Stacy's talk here about referrals is that there's a 3-legged stool metaphor that she breaks off that makes it more palatable and makes it an addition to what you're doing to drive business. Not a replacement, not a cure-all, but a process. Just amazing kind of, I guess they call it a roadmap to grow your business. And that's her podcast. And she's here on our podcast, going to give you all of that goodness coming up after the commercial messages from ConsultWebs. It's Paul Julius. It's Stacy Brown Randall. It's Jake Sanders. It's you. It's us. It's Lawson.
Let's go.
Lawson continues. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The internet can be a cold and unforgiving place. Every day, thousands of law firm websites go unvisited and unfairly labeled as worthless due to the inattention or misguided attempts at do-it-yourself marketing by their owners. Poor optimization and bad design principles have left these sites unable to realize the full potential of the digital landscape they're forced to exist in, and they're now trapped on page 3 of the search results in an endless cycle of bad management, leading to poor results, leading to disillusionment and loss. There's hope for these neglected websites in the form of a digital marketing company focused exclusively on law firms. Since 1999, ConsultWebs has helped hundreds of lawyers connect to thousands of clients across the country using sound marketing principles based off an exhaustive track record of marketing campaigns that have already proven to be successful. If your website is underperforming, call ConsultWebs at 800-872-6590 and get the clicks it so desperately needs. Please don't let another day full of unvisited pages go by. Take that step and call today for them.
And now, for a awesome interview.
Stacy Brown Randall is a member of the Business Failure Club, a contrarian on how to generate referrals and a supporter of the entrepreneurial dream. Through her program, Stacy provides a roadmap to take control of your business. Stacy Randall is a 3-time entrepreneur, author of the award-winning book Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, and host of the Roadmap to Grow Your Business podcast. Stacy's clients include well-known corporations and franchises such as Bank of America, Mass Mutual, International Minute Press, and Real Living Real Estate, but her focus is on small business owners and solopreneurs. Stacy received her master's in organizational communication, is married with 3 kids, and she's decided to join us on the Lawson podcast today. Stacy, welcome aboard.
Well, I am just so pleased to be here.
So give our listeners some background, like the elevator pitch. What do you do and how did you get here?
Well, I wish I could tell you that one day I just woke up with a stroke of brilliance and I was like, I'm going to teach people how to get referrals without asking for them. I'm going to go against all that decade-old advice and be a contrarian of how you get referrals. And I'm going to teach people how to get them without asking.
Ooh.
But that would not be true because I did not wake up with a stroke of brilliance.
Darn it.
And all of a sudden, right? No,
it's so much easier for the editing too. We could have just zipped right to it. There's a montage
right
and
along,
then bang.
Right. Unfortunately, it had to come through the school of hard knocks, right? Like all good lessons learned do. And I had a business fail. I owned an HR consulting firm for about just over 4 years and big name clients like KPMG and Ally Bank. So, the business from the outside looking in, you would have thought probably should have succeeded. Wow. But what I realized is when I looked back after my business failed, the reasons why, right? You do that reflection as you're like licking your wounds and getting over your ego blow. And I looked back at while I was sitting back in corporate America, and I looked back and I was like, okay, why did my business fail? I had good clients. Where'd they come from? And then I realized that I never figured out how to continually fill the pipeline, right? That prospecting pipeline, it never stayed full. I was always hustling for the next client, which is normal your first or second year in business, but really you shouldn't be on that same roller coaster by your 4th or 5th. And I looked back and I'm like, well, where did my clients come from? Not one from referrals. Like I didn't receive one of my clients from referrals with my first business. And actually the only referral that business received came 2 years after I shut it down and I was back in corporate America. And so I was like, you know what? I am born to be an entrepreneur. I don't play so well in the sandbox of corporate America. So I need to be an entrepreneur. I got certified as a business and productivity coach while I was in corporate America, decided to make that my plan B. Left, started building my coaching practice and really just learned the lessons learned from my business failure and realizing with no referrals received, I wanted some with this second business and just started figuring out how to go against everything you're taught about referrals to see if I could generate referrals. I got 112 referrals in my first year as a business and productivity coach without asking for them. I've continued to do that every year since. Then my clients were like, okay, what are you doing? So I had to kind of like reverse engineer what I was doing for myself and like create a system behind it so that I could teach it. And that's when I realized that it has nothing to do with my industry, nothing to do with my gender, nothing to do with my personality, but this was actually a process that other people could apply to their business to be able to generate referrals without having to ask for them. And so we've been doing this now for 7 years. We made the full switch to like totally focused on helping people build their business in this way. And we're in 9 different countries all over the world and having a lot of fun while we do it.
Boom. That's amazing. So to back up for a second though, let's talk about, we're talking referrals, not asking. What's a referral and what is not a referral?
That is such a good question because everybody brings their own opinion and their own definition or what they think a referral is. And the truth is we take terms, other sales terms, and we use them interchangeably with referrals. We talk about word of mouth buzz or a warm lead or an introduction, and we use those interchangeably with referrals. And that's actually 4 different types of prospects. There's a difference between an introduction versus a referral versus word of mouth buzz or a warm lead. And so a referral is always going to have 2 things. But to define what those 2 things are, let me just say, remember why we want referrals. When you ask anybody, hey, would you like to grow your business by referral? Usually they're going to say yes. I'm not saying you can have 100% referral-based business. Some can, but it should be a part of how you're growing your business. And when we say yes to wanting that referral-based business, we say yes because those prospects show up and they're quicker to close, they're easier to close. We didn't have to work as hard to get them, and they are usually less price sensitive because they were referred to us. They already trust us. So when we think about how a referred client or referred prospect shows up, ready to go, less price sensitive, easier, quicker to close, it's because of two very important key things, which is the definition of a referral, which is number one, they're always personally connected to you. So they're always going to be connected to you by another human who is known as the referral source. And that referral source is going to know somebody who needs you. And so they're going to make that connection. Typically, this is going to happen over email. That's how I teach my students that you want it to happen because you want to be connected to this prospect so you can follow up and be in the driver's seat. But also, when you're connected by your referral source, that's where the transfer of trust happens. And so you always want that connection there. So, number one, you've got to be personally connected. Number two, there has to be a need identified. The prospect has to know that they are the prospect, that they are in buyer's mentality mode, right? They need a new attorney, right? They are looking for somebody different. And that's why they're willing to talk to you, which is when you're personally connected, so the trust can be transferred by a referral source, right? And there's a need identified, the prospect knows they're the prospect, right? At that point, you can see why, so when they show up in your inbox or they show up ready to do work with you, that's why we want them ready to go, less price sensitive, quicker and easier to close because they show up with those two pieces, personal connection and need identified.
This is really interesting. So here's a mentality. Here's a mentality switch that we need to address here, Stacy. Referring and versus selling. Like people maybe think selling is gross. Maybe they don't want to hack into their business. Maybe they don't want a growth. Maybe they're looking to not get growths. Do you know what I mean? How can referrals help you stop selling? Because I think maybe there's a cheapening thing around marketing and advertising that lawyers specifically don't want to go for because, I don't want to be that type of lawyer. They don't want to sell. Or maybe they're already selling and they want to get off the carousel. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Break apart this idea of referral and selling. And is there some kind of salesmanship to closing things? Or, is there a dichotomy here?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I know that I have a number of attorneys in my program, and I know all of them say the same thing. They got into being an attorney, to becoming a lawyer, because they're really good at being an attorney or being a lawyer, right? That's where they live in their space of happiness, right? And they are good at helping people and they are good at fighting for people or whatever type of law they're doing or protecting their assets, whatever it is.
Yes.
They're really good at that. What they didn't get into business to do and to become an attorney to do is to actually have to be the greatest hustling salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality of it is, if you're going to grow your business or grow a piece, right? If you're responsible for a part of your practice, if you're going to have to bring in business, you have to know how to close. You have to know how to sell. That's just, I would never tell someone, no, you can totally do this without knowing how to close or without knowing how to sell.
Right.
But the difference is, because you have to know how to close and how to sell, it's because not every single one of your clients are going to walk through the door being referred to you. So when you have the person who fills out the form, right, on your contact page because they found you through a Google search because you have a million fabulous online rating and reviews, you still need to know how to close that person. But when a referred prospect walks through the door, what it allows you to do is to remind yourself that they already know they have a problem. They're already there because someone told them that you're the person they should have a conversation with. So you get to turn off the dog and pony salesman show, right? Of oh, look how awesome our firm is. And you get to just have a normal conversation with somebody who wants to say yes. Just don't screw it up so that they can say yes. And basically I tell people, when you're talking to a referred prospect, your sales strategy, the script that you follow or the outline or whatever you call it that you follow, should be more of questions of curiosity to figure out, can I help you? Like, we already know you have a problem, right? Can I help you? We already know why so-and-so referred you to me, right? So it's questions of curiosity to figure out if you're the right person to help them, which completely changes the dynamic of that selling. I'm doing air quotes that you guys can't see, but like of that selling
I heard them.
conversation. Everything gets to change in that moment. Do you still have to get them to say yes at the end? Of course, but the approach and how you should show up way more confident would be the idea here, should change based on obviously the type of prospect you're dealing with. And everything's easier when someone's been referred.
I love it. And there's something about the interchangeability of sales terminology that you mentioned earlier, which I think is at work here, because this is just a new kind of packaging of age-old information. Like hearing people, listening to them, guiding them through something, and then helping them make the right decision seems like, you could have given somebody in an ancient marketplace this same advice selling an urn or some spices or something. It feels like really age-old advice. You're saying something here that you don't ask for the referrals. You say your book says don't ask, or you have this idea of not asking for referrals. Well, how do you get what you don't ask for? Do you just sort of stand on top of the shining hill and people come to you?
Build it and they will come?
Is that sort of how it is?
No, it does not work that
No?
way. If you build it, they will not come.
Okay.
This is not Field of Dreams. It's interesting. I like that question from that perspective of, okay, how do I get what I can't ask for? Because I'm going against everything.
I know.
That
it's hurting my head, Stacy.
I know that coach who believed in you when you were younger, or that, maybe it was well, okay, maybe it was like a professor in college, or it was your parent, or it was a sibling, or somebody. It was like
somebody believed in you. Come on. Yes.
I mean, I say it to my kids all the time. Please go to school and advocate for yourself. Please go ask the teacher whatever the heck it is that you don't seem to understand as to why you're getting bad grades, right? Like,
love it.
Go advocate for yourself. So yes, I do believe that sometimes you need to ask for what you want. But here's the thing. You can't do that with referrals, because when I'm asking for something that I want, it's about me. Referrals aren't about you. We like to think they are. They're just not. If you think about why a referral actually happens, it is because somebody else knows somebody who has a problem and they want to help them solve that problem. I mean, technically, we all like to be the hero when we can be and help somebody else. And so in my helping of that person, if you happen to be the right solution provider, bonus for you that you got a referral. But nobody wakes up and says, how can I help Paul grow his business today? Nobody does that except for Paul.
I wish. I'd have so few problems.
I know. So nobody wakes up and says, hey, how do I help Stacy grow her business today? I'm the only one waking up asking myself that question.
Right.
And so the reality is we have to remember that. So when we ask for a referral, we're making it about us. But a referral is the thing in the world that is never about us. It's about somebody else helping someone they know solve their problem. And the fact that you happen to be the solution provider is great and bonus and the gravy on top, but you're not the reason why. Now, is your relationship with the referral source important? Is it important that they know what you do? Is it important, right, that you guys have a relationship to the point where they would be comfortable putting their reputation on the line when they recommend you? Of course. But it is not the heart and soul as to why a referral happens in the first place. It's because, and think about it this way, many people, at least once in their life, have asked somebody for a referral. They've been sitting at a coffee meeting, back when we actually met people at Starbucks. They were sitting in a coffee shop and I got to the end of a conversation and they just asked the person, hey, do you know anybody, or do you know 5 other people just like you that I should be doing business with? Or I went through your LinkedIn profile and here's like 7 people I would love for you to connect me to, right? Like, we've all done that once. And there's this ick factor that happens with it. In addition to, right?
Just saying it, I was like, oh man, I ain't hanging out with Stacy no more.
You are so right.
Well, and here's the thing. So this ick factor happens. It happens in our gut. It happens in their gut. They're like pushing back from the table. They're like, yep, got to wrap this coffee up, right? Like, I'm done. And then they say the classic words, let me think about that. I'll get back to you. And they never get back to you. because you are actually manufacturing or artificially creating something that doesn't exist, because we want to think that we can snap our fingers and ask somebody and they'll hand us a referral, but that's not how it works. And so we have to approach it from a different perspective if we want the referral piece to work. So when I say don't ask, I'm not saying you do nothing and wait and hope and pray it's going to show up, right? But what I am saying is when you ask, that becomes your trigger for a referral that are typically manufactured and artificially created, which is why you don't get any. And you have to approach it from a different direction.
So what do you think, though? This is a little bit to the side of that. But on Facebook, around here, I'm part of like a couple, community groups, just local town, connection kind of things, neighborhood. I guess it would be like the digital version of chatting in the backyard with your neighbors. But a very common thing on there is, hey, looking for, a roofer, or I need a reliable mechanic or something like that. Like, what do you think about that kind of social kind of stamp of approval like that? Like, how does that happen, I guess?
Well, and how do you interject yourself into that would be the main question everybody wants to know.
Right. So so two things. But think about the examples you just used to describe why somebody goes to a Facebook group and asks for a recommendation. It's a very transactional industry in terms of what they're requesting a recommendation on. You said a roofer, a new HVAC, right? Like, think about those as the ones whereas it's not the cheapest thing in the world to put on a new roof or to put in an HVAC unit.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like I'm hiring a professional services company in that way. Nobody goes on Facebook and says, hey, I am getting sued.
Yeah, or I'm getting a divorce.
Yeah.
I'm getting a divorce. Hey, everybody.
Yeah, I'm getting a divorce. Thought you all would like to know.
Love
and what
it.
attorney can you recommend to me? Right. So here's the thing. There's a reason and a place for why it works. And I think in highly transactional type industries, those type of recommendations work. It's why when I go to a restaurant, I'm like, oh, where's the 5-star reviews from all these strangers who I don't know who are reviewing it, right? And I'll be like, okay, we'll go there because it's got more stars. Like, there's something about the industry in which the recommendation is coming from and the request is coming from that we're more comfortable saying yes. Okay, I'll say yes to the roofer because 3 people use them and seem to say good things, because after I spend those couple $1,000s on my new roof, I shouldn't be putting another one on for 14 or 15 years.
Right.
But when we're talking about the attorney that's going to build our estate plan, right? Or we're talking about the CPA that's going to help us with our business and personal taxes, or we're talking about, whatever it is in terms of the more non-transactional relationship-based professional services type businesses, we're not asking those questions on Facebook.
Yeah, and it's different. It's not like a packaged good on a shelf.
Well,
it's a credence good that is sort of a service. I think you're making a really good distinction. Well, so here let's get back to this idea of generating referrals. What's another thing that people are misconceiving about this? Is it just that you do good work and it shows up? Because that's a bell that people hit all the time in law firms. Just do the work and the referrals just show up. Is that a misconception, or is that like the truth? Don't blow our mind too much,
just like I just did. I thought anywhere. Why not? Why is Facebook a great? Are there specific places that are better for?
Talk about it.
Or not? Yeah. Like, what are?
All right,
just
that's
some
a compound
misconceptions?
question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Objection.
We just want where do we mess up?
It's all good. So don't worry, I gotcha. Okay, so here's the thing for us to remember. Most of us have heard the advice for decades, if not generations, depending on how long we've been in business, and we've heard it passed down, that if we want referrals, we really have to ask for them. And maybe you've heard some advice where you can pay for them, which of course attorneys can't do. And maybe you've heard some advice where you need to be really overly promotional and gimmicky, like put in your email signature, I'm never too busy for your referrals, or referrals are the greatest compliment you can give me. That is the 3 pieces of advice that has been peddled to us for decades and decades. Ask, pay, or be promotional and gimmicky. That's it. And if you're not willing to do those things, well, then you default to another option, which is we'll just sit back and hope that you're good enough, and they'll just roll in sporadically whenever they feel like it. And so that's really dangerous thought processes in terms of you doing something to make the referrals happen. So most people default to that option where they just kind of sit back and wait. And then we tell ourselves, well, I should be getting referrals because I do really great work. And the truth is, it is absolutely a fundamental piece and a foundational starting point for you to get referrals. Nobody refers choppy or crappy work, right? Like, yes, you actually have to be referable to receive referrals,
Right.
but it's not that simple. It's just not. That's why there's all this advice about asking or paying or being promotion gimmicky. Remember, if we all did great work and the referrals just showed up, all of the referral, like the little boutique industry of people teaching referrals would
Wouldn't
just
be a thing.
disappear
It
overnight.
wouldn't
Right.
be
Yeah.
a thing. Yeah.
I wouldn't
Good
be
point.
here.
Good.
Right.
Good point.
So the reality of that is, okay, so you've been taught this. You don't like the way it feels. That's not how you want your reputation to be staked on the, oh, here comes Jacob again, always asking, run away, right? Like when we don't want that, the other side is, well, then just, good luck. I hope it happens for you. What I have found is that if you actually really dive into understanding, right, who your referral sources are, like who are these people who refer you, and you focus on the number one thing that drives referrals, which is relationships. So having a relationship with your referral sources. And obviously there are better referral sources than others, right? But having a relationship with your referral source where you are actually strengthening and deepening the relationship, like being a human and caring. And then, of course, I teach that you also want to weave in what we call planting referral seeds, which is just the language, it's the messaging, it's the communication piece we use. So they think about us from a referral perspective, but it's all in a position of where, hey, we're just really thankful for what you do for us and making sure they always feel taken care of. Then there's a cadence to how you're actually able to build these relationships and how you're able to maintain them and keep them going and invest in them so that you can actually have more referrals come, right? So again, it's a system, it's a process, and it has its own piece of a trigger. The trigger part is just, hey, I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to make sure you know that I'm thankful for your referrals. And that is going to be what helps you actually want to refer me. So I never put you in a position where I'm asking you or trying to pay you or trying to be really promotional and gimmicky and cheesy.
Love it. Can't argue with it. Uh-oh. I have somebody descending down my staircase. Paul, ask the next question about LinkedIn because that's
cool. Well,
that's critical stuff, man. LinkedIn is a cesspool.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, LinkedIn, I'm kind of curious about that because it does kind of show, oh, I've done, here's my background. Here's the work I've done. You can do, you can put examples of stuff. But it's, you're a needle in a haystack kind of without asking. So, I mean, in general, like, do you feel good? Do you refer people to LinkedIn? Like, do you feel like LinkedIn's a good place to get referrals, or is it like part of the process? Like, what are your feelings on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So here's what I always tell folks is that there are a lot of tools and tactics that are absolutely available for you to use to grow your business. And social media absolutely has its place. And more than likely, how you're going to use social media, whether it's LinkedIn or it's Instagram or it's Facebook or it's Twitter, depending on your industry and depending on your communication channel, right? It is a place for you to build credibility. It is a place for you to have connections with people, right? To stay in contact with people and to build credibility because you can publish articles or report out on a new client you landed or an award you won. Like there's good stuff that comes, I think, from all the social media channels. But the truth is, if I'm looking for a new attorney or I am looking for a new business consultant or I'm looking for a new CPA or whatever it is, right? I may check you out online and use LinkedIn to check you out after somebody's told me that you're my guy or you're my gal, right? So it is the place where you should be on LinkedIn, but it is a place from the perspective of a credibility builder. So if I'm recommended, right, if I refer you to someone, you're probably going to do a Google search. It's probably going to pull up LinkedIn and some other things in their website, probably going to check you out, right, from a back end perspective, like a background perspective. But the reality of it is I'm making the decision to say yes to actually having a meeting with you to see if I want to hire you because somebody recommended you to me. And so that is the point of how we use LinkedIn. It's not because referrals are just going to flow through your inbox in the in-mail.
Right.
That's not how this works, right? Ultimately, what it is it's a place to be to make sure that when somebody is recommended you and they go check you out, that you look legit.
Can I ask something about relationship? How does a podcast fit into that? Like content marketing, newsletters, video series. A lot of lawyers are looking to expand into things that aren't advertising, but continue to nurture the relationship and value outside of their service. Just talk on that. Speak to what advice you give entrepreneurs, because is it a good thing? Is it just extra work? What's your advice as content marketing, podcast specifically?
So here's the thing. You have to understand what's working in your business. That's really important, right? So if you're going to do a podcast, what's the objective? Like, what is the end goal, right? What does that look like for you? And for someone like me, right, like I mentioned, I have students in my program in 9 different countries. Let's be honest, I'm never going to work one-on-one with all of them. I'm never going to meet all of them. And so a podcast is an opportunity for people to hear me and see if they believe in what I have to say before they decide to take the dive. It's one more content channel for them to connect with me to figure out if I'm the right person for them. But those things you do, podcasting, social media, earned PR, advertising, cold calling, networking, all that stuff fits into your prospecting and your marketing plan. Your sales strategy, the way we've been taught, is that you have a prospecting plan and you have a marketing plan. Your sales strategy has a 2-legged stool, right? Prospecting on one side, marketing on the other. The argument that I make when you're wanting to actually consider referrals is you got to pull referrals out of prospecting, out of marketing. So stop asking, stop being gimmicky and promotional, and create a third leg to your stool, which is where you're going to actually focus on generating referrals. So everything you do in your business is going to fall under referrals, prospecting, or marketing. Most content that you're going to produce and put out there, right, is going to be so that you hopefully can engage with the prospect. That's what prospecting and marketing is all about. Hey, hear my podcast, decide you like me, buy my program, right? Like that's the point of what we put out there in the world from a content perspective. It's just different when it's referrals, because the end user of your prospecting and your marketing is the prospect. That's the person we want to hear the message or see the message and then respond to the message. With referrals, the end user is the referral source, not the prospect. That's why everything's different. And that's why I say you have to pull out referrals from prospecting and marketing, which means you need to have prospecting and marketing. If you want to have a podcast because it fits in your objective, do it. If you want to do social media posts every day because it fits within your objective and it's working, do it. But let's also make sure that we have a third leg to our stool of how we're going to bring in sales. And that is referrals, which means everything we do is different.
I'm just picturing the 2-legged stool and laughing. Because it's like, who invented this? And I think it's such a good idea on paper. That is brilliant. I'm getting goosebumps because you're talking real talk, Stacy. This is really, really cool. That's amazing. And yeah, do people have that same kind of reaction when they get this, or is it just a little bit less? Because I'm getting goosebumps. I mean, this is really, really cool.
You know, what most people tell me is it's like breaking it down. It's like breaking down things you've always heard, but breaking it down in a way you've never actually thought about. And it allows the light bulbs to go on. And that is what that drives me, is like when I can take something and break it down to what we're all kind of thinking, but not really saying because we haven't really thought about it that way, and break it down where you can see it. Because when you can see it, then I know you can apply it. And if you can see it like the way it's meant to be seen, and not with years and decades of other thoughts that are kind of piling on, telling you what it's supposed to look like. That's where people are like, oh, I get that. Which then when I say I get it, then I know I can do it.
But it's exciting because you're taking things and you don't throw everything away. I think what we're really enchanted by in marketing and business development is, oh, this is the new thing. We don't have to do the old thing anymore. And you're like, no, it's all of it together. I just appreciate that you have a nuance and a distinction and there's strategy here, because it's not just referrals now. You know, because some people are like, oh, it's just referrals now. Haven't you heard? You know, it's just TikToks. Haven't you heard? We're doing choreography, you know, and I think we're ready to get rid. No one does TV ads anymore. Screw billboards. And you're like, you know what? If that fits, do it. If this works, do it. That's our advice. And lawyers' advice too, is it depends. Does it work for you? You know, and most people don't want that. We want an amazing helmet to put on. In that spirit, if there was one thing, this helmet that we could put on, one thing we could do to handle the referrals in our law firms and our businesses, what would that piece be?
Yeah. So there's nothing like giving the one thing you have to do and it being the least sexy piece of advice that you can give. But that's what I'm going to do. The number one thing you need to do if you want to be successful with your law firm when it comes to referrals is that you need to sit down and go through the painstaking process, particularly if you don't have a CRM, a client relationship management tool, and you need to identify who your referral sources are. Trust me, when you see the list of people who have referred clients and prospects, maybe those that didn't become clients, to you, you are going to view your business differently. You may feel bad because you may be like, oh my gosh, that person referred 3 people to me last year and I haven't talked to them since 2018, right? Or you may look at that list and you may be like, wait a minute, I spend every Thursday night grabbing a beer with Tom and Tom's not anywhere on this list. Why am I spending all this time with Tom?
Tom!
Right? Like Tom, don't need that much time with Tom, right? So the idea here is that when you know who your referral sources are, then you can decide, do I want to do something different to get more referrals from these people? And what about my list isn't big enough, or I don't have enough people on the list, or what about those people who should be on the list? Then recognizing, well, there's also a process for that to turn people into referral sources and do it in a way that's going to fit who you are. And you're probably going to be comfortable doing it from the perspective of once you know who your referral sources are, you have now identified your business's biggest asset. And every person that touches business development in your company, in your firm, should be going through this process.
Here's one question. Love it. One follow-up. How do you not get over tilted and reliant on referral stuff? Oh, you just answered that. You said there's prospecting and marketing. Shut up, Jake. Now I'm paying attention, Stacy. You better watch out.
I'm glad now that it's the end of the interview.
God damn it.
I mean, but Jake,
I'm just checking in.
Jake, you do make a good point. Like, you don't want to lean on things too much, and you also, you could. I mean, there's a limit. Like, is there like a saturation point with this? Or
there you go.
Just keep going.
Is that a good question? I feel stupid, but that's a great. Thank you, Paul, for making me feel less stupid.
It's a great question. Here's the thing. I always tell folks at some point, let's worry about problems when they actually become problems. Most of the time, people aren't paying attention to their referral generation. So I'm like, I would be happy if you could just get yourself to 30% referral based. Let's stop shooting for 100%, right? And here's the thing. At the end of the day, you need to be doing things that work. So when you're deciding to have a third leg to your stool and have a referral plan and identify your referral sources and build a plan the way I teach it, and you're looking at it from that perspective, well, guess what? We base everything on ROI. Like, we're going to keep doing it and we're going to know that it works when we're actually receiving referrals. But it doesn't mean we stop our prospecting and our marketing. What it does mean, though, if we're doing 33 different things and only 12 are actually working and we want to spend some time on referrals, we may be willing to cut out a handful of things to make space to focus on referrals. But we don't stop the things that are working. But let's be honest, guys. I mean, a lot of times I'm sure you guys are like me, you talk to business owners and they don't know what's working.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So we have to start there first before we then worry about, are we going to become overly reliant on referrals? I'm like, well, you got 4 last year, so I'm going to go with no. Right?
You just need a realistic slap from Stacey.
Wham!
Well, it's just true. It's like I'm thinking of a couple of attorneys that come into my program over the years, and they're like, okay, I get like 3 or 4 referrals a year. I'm like, oh, are you happy with that? And they're like, no, that's why I'm here. And 2 years later, they're getting 40 referrals a year. I'm like, okay, now that you're getting 40 referrals a year, you got 20 in your first year, 40 in your second year. Have we hit a capacity issue? And they're like, no, now I'm picking and choosing who I want to work with, right? So it just kind of depends on when you get the referrals you want, you get different choices you get to make. But it's the same thing when you have leads coming in from a different mechanism and it's working and it's bringing you ideal client, you get choices you get to make in that moment because something's working.
5 questions we ask everyone.
what was the last book you read?
The last book I read was, well, I'm almost done with it. It's Ninja Selling.
Number 2, what is your favorite place?
Oh, that is tough. I have lots of places that I love to go, but one where there's 2 places. I'm going to butcher all your questions because I'm going to change the answer.
It's okay.
There's 2 places that I step into and I instantly feel a million times better. And that is Hilton Head Island in South Carolina and this family camp that my family and I go to in Pennsylvania every year where the internet doesn't work.
Oh boy. There
Love
you go.
it.
Yes.
Number 3, what sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
So from a regular perspective for me, it is typically because I do have most of the way that I work with people is through online programs and online courses. So I do listen to another of the experts kind of in that space, like Amy Porterfield is one that I follow pretty regularly from that perspective. So I try to limit the number of like experts I let in my head because then you're chasing all kinds of white rabbits all down the, the hole.
Yep.
And so she's probably the one that I kind of use as a go-to person that I listen to. But I don't know if you guys ever heard this book called Rebel Girls. It's a book that came out that talks about 100 different rebel women. It's a book my daughter and I read a story like every night. They have 3 books out, but they have a podcast too. And so she and I listen to their and my daughter's 10 and she and I listen to their podcast, but it's called Rebel Girls.
Awesome.
Nice. All right. Number 4, if you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Condiment? So Starbucks doesn't count?
We don't really have a lot of rules in this segment of the podcast, Stacey. So, if you can make a case for it, we'll allow it.
Yep.
Condiment. I don't know. I mean, yeah. What condiment would it be? Probably sugar.
Right
Ooh.
on.
I am addicted to sugar. That's why I like my Starbucks.
I love it.
It's a great answer.
I don't think we've ever got that. That's
All right.
awesome.
Last one. After a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Usually with a beer on the back deck with my husband after we have pawned the children off on someone else, usually a grandmother.
Nice.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonpodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawson.